right now, I'm at a point in my life where I value living sacredly. And for a long time in my life, anyone else that was living sacredly, to me, was weird. And I used to almost cringe at the idea of holding extra sacredness for different aspects of life. People, to me, felt arrogant and weird, and I just didn't like it. It was very triggering. And for most of my life, that's what I thought of people, that even the word sacred, I just didn't like it. And the reason why is because if we look at the word weird, weird means something that we don't understand and we don't feel safe around. So if I see someone and they're wearing all this gothic clothing as they're walking down the street, and then I say to a friend, look how weird that person is. Essentially, I'm saying, I feel threatened by that person and unsafe on that person, around that person, and I don't understand that person. Now, in the past, when I would go along to different personal development events, there would always be a leader of different levels of spiritual embodiment. And if I was learning from someone that was quite mainstream earlier on in my journey, I would be feeling quite safe around that. And I did understand that. So I felt safe. I understood it. Wasn't weird. But then if I learnt from someone and they did a prayer, I thought, oh, that's like that religious stuff. I don't feel safe around that. I don't understand it either. So I would say to a friend, I went to a seminar today and it was pretty solid. There were some weird parts, but in the most part, it was pretty good. But it was a bit weird. In other words, I felt safe most of the time. And then there were some parts that I didn't understand that were a bit weird. Then when I got into spirituality and meditation, I would go to a meditation class or a retreat. And then I would say to friends afterwards, it was really powerful. I learned this amazing spiritual techniques. But then we did a ceremony with some singing and making these noises, and it was a bit weird. In other words, I don't understand what that is, why it is, and I feel unsafe around it. Because one thing to understand is, as human beings, our brains are programmed to trigger a fear response when we are embracing the unknown, doing something that's new. So it doesn't really matter what it is. If we don't understand it and it's new, it's going to cause a fear response, which is making us feel unsafe. And then we will label things as weird. In other words, we just don't understand it and it makes us feel unsafe. And I've done that. I do so many things right now in my life that a previous version of me thought were weird. And I've had heaps of friends that just have new different practices and ideas that I didn't understand, felt unsafe around, and would label them weird. And so, just to be very clear, sacredness often in society has a weird label. People are labeling spirituality as weird. In other words, they don't understand it and it's threatening to them, because anything that's new is threatening to anybody, really. And so that's the pre-frame and the context through which most of us are exposed to spirituality. I used to go into a spirituality store and it was like cauldrons and dragons and skulls, and I was like, oh, these crystals look nice, but the darkness and the skulls, and it's yuck and weird, and I don't get that, because I didn't understand the darkness, my dark masculine. I didn't have a very safe association with death and shadow, darkness. And now I look at that stuff and I think it's cool, because I am much more familiar with darkness in myself. So I feel more understanding of it, more safe around it. So it's not something I class as weird. Important preframe, because I want to take the sting off the idea of sacredness and incorporating all different forms of spirituality into our lifestyle. What's the function? What's the benefit? What's the purpose? And I got a really enlightening revelation around this topic. In the last year, I did a altar course, a course all about developing a mesa, which is the Mayan word for altar, where there is crystals that get programmed to have different associations and meanings. And there's a way to set up an altar that can be sat in front of to have a time of sacredness and intention setting. And I was very pulled to do this. A few years ago, I would have said it was weird because didn't understand it, didn't feel safe around it. But I felt really pulled to do it because I already had a bunch of spiritual items and I wanted to know how I could interact with it and get the most out of that experience. And one thing that the beautiful teachers said in there was, in the Mayan tradition, they've got this idea of Sami, which means light energy, and Hucha, which means darkness. And essentially, I like to put that in a slightly different language, head and heart, and understanding what they said, which was, when you sit in front of your altar, you are burning Hucha, burning darkness, and you are getting a direct transmission of light energy, of Sami energy. And I thought, wow, that's just clicked a lot of things for